Masechet Ketubot Daf Lamed Bet. We've been talking about the principle of Kimle B'Drabamine, that one is liable to two punishments, capital punishment and monetary, for doing the same act, responsible simultaneously. Then one only gets the more severe punishment, which would be capital punishment, and does not have to pay. The daf today is going to be talking about the application of that principle, not to capital punishment, but instead to lashes. If one does an act and simultaneously becomes liable to lashes and to pay money, then what happens? So it seems we do apply it. The question is, which one does he get? We're going to see a machloket, but first we're going to see Ula in the beginning on the first half, and then Rabbi Yochanan in the second half of the daf. Ula is going to say that one pays money and does not get lashes. Rabbi Yochanan one gets lashes and not pay money. It's partly about a question of which one is more severe. I don't know. Which one would you rather? Pay money or get 40 lashes, 39 lashes? Maybe it depends on how much money we're talking about. Okay, so that's the discussion. It comes up because of the last clause of the Mishnah, which said, Haba lachotov alachot aviv, if someone rapes or seduces a close relative like his sister, then he has to pay the fine to the father, the 50 kesef. Because she's a bitula, and now he took away her bitulim. All right, so now we see he has to pay. Here's the question: Urminu eluhen halokin haba alachot alachot abi alachot imo alachot ishto al eshet achi al eshet achi abi ve'al hanida. Mishnah and Makot says the following people are flogged: someone who has relations with his sister and other close relatives. Now we know the punishment here is karet. But there's a principle that any time someone would be liable to karet, which is a heavenly punishment, the bet din can and will give the person lashes so that they get an earthly punishment, which I guess would be preferable to a worse punishment in the hands of heaven. So here we see that these people do get lashes. And now we have a problem because our Mishnah said the person is liable to pay. We have a principle that one does not get lashes and also pay. It's one or the other. We're going to see machloket about which one, but you could only do one of them. Our Mishnah says payment. The Mishnah in Makot says lashes. So which one is it? Amar Ula, here's the first answer. La kashya, kan ba'choto na'ara, kan ba'choto bogeret. Ula says, there's not a problem. The Mishnah is talking about two different cases. Our Mishnah in Ketubot is talking about a sister who is a na'ara, between 12 and 12 and a half. That's when the law of rape applies. But if we're talking about a bogeret, that's the other Mishnah in Makot, is talking about someone who's grown. And the laws of paying the fine does not apply to in that case. So since he does not have to pay, that's why he gets lashes. So anytime that one is liable to both, like in the case of a na'ara, then he will pay only and not get lashes. Over there, no payment because she's not a na'ara. The whole law does not apply. Okay, hold on, even if she is a bogeret and doesn't have to pay the fine that is listed for the specific 50 shekel, that one has to pay to the father. Nevertheless, one would still have to pay boshet and pagam, humiliation, degradation, in the case of rape. So he has to pay something. So he should have the payment and not the lashes. We answer bishota. We're talking about someone who is the woman is mentally incapacitated. The idea being is that she's not going to feel humiliation. Nowadays, I think our sensibility would say someone who is mentally incapacitated, someone takes advantage of that and violates her, that we would consider that even worse. But nevertheless, here we're talking about the subjective feeling of humiliation, and that will depend on the person and their level and mental state. So we're talking about, that Mishnah is talking about such a case where it's a bogeret and a shota. Vayika sada, hold on. She also pain. If someone is is violated by force, so she's going to feel pain, and doesn't matter if she's bogedet and shota, he would still have to pay for that. And the answer is bimfuta. Okay, that Mishnah is not talking about a case of rape, but rather seduction. So because she agreed, it's not violent, and she agreed to it, so she will not feel pain. And so it has to be talking about that case only, is where that Mishnah would say, since there's no payment at all, that's when one gets lashes. But in the vast majority of cases, he would have to pay something, and therefore he would not get lashes. Okay, wait a second. Now that you are telling me that we're going to limit that case only to someone who's seduced and not forcibly raped, then we can even go back and say it doesn't have to be a bogedet, it can even be a na'ara. If we say she's a yetoma, so if she's an orphan, she has no father, so the law of paying the fine goes to the father. If someone is an orphan, there's no father to give it to, and so she would get it normally. The thing is, mifuta, if she's seduced, that means she says she's willing, although she's a minor, and so it's still considered prohibited, but that agreement would be sufficient to forego the fine. So therefore, since she's a yetoma and a mefuta, so then it doesn't have to be a bogeret if it's a yetoma. Okay, so that's the couple of options that to resolve, and to resolve the difference between this Mishnah and that Mishnah. Usually one would pay, as our Mishnah says, but in these specific cases, if there's no payment possible, no payment liability, then one would get lashes. That's the Mishnah and Makot. All right, we resolved it, but now we want to analyze Ula's position. Alma kasabar Ula kol hechad ikamamon umalkut mamona mishalim milka la lake. So you must think that any time that one does an action and one is liable to both monetary payment and lashes, so he pays and does not get lashes. You only apply one of them. I guess considering the money to be more severe. Mina leda ulaha. How does he know? Gamar mechobel b'chabero, machobel b'chabero dika mamon u malkut, mamona meshalem melkala lake, af kol hecha dika mamon u malkut, mamona meshalem melkala lake. So if someone injures someone else, then one would be theoretically liable to two counts. So there's mamon he has to pay. We know that from Pasuk in Shemot 21, someone hits someone else and he doesn't die, and he goes and he's able to walk outside, so he didn't kill him, but he did injure him. So because he didn't kill him, so he doesn't get a capital punishment, but he does have to pay for the time he spent, he was not at work, and he has to pay for all of his medical expenses. So we know that someone who injures has to pay. Now we also know that he deserves malkut. That we learn from the law that says a bet din should hit someone if he deserves it. They can hit him only 40, but not more. Because if the bet din would give him more than 40, then that's a violation. So we see that there's another violation of hitting someone. Bet din could even violate it if they give more than 40, but that would apply also to anyone who goes and hits someone. That they are liable, and the penalty for that is lashes. So now we see that there are the Torah gives two different punishments for injury, and yet the bottom line law is mamona mishalem, one only pays, so he does not get lashes. So therefore, that's the source, that any time that one is liable to monetary compensation and lashes, so he pays and does not get lashes. That's Ula's proof. But hold on, we say that's not a good proof. Maybe that case of injury is more stringent, because when one injures someone else, one has to pay for 5 different things: the injury, the pain, medical costs, loss of livelihood, and humiliation. So maybe that's why, because there's so many things to pay for, in that case, the money is more stringent. But in another case, maybe not. We would say the money is less stringent. So that is not a good source. And if you're going to say, and if you think in general that money is less severe, see, even ula here, we're not even sure which one is more severe. So if the money is more severe, maybe it's only more severe here in this case because of paying 5 things. And if you think in general money is less severe, and then you would say, well, if he pays money in this case where he injured, then all the more so in other cases, which would be less severe, right? If he has to pay money in injury, and injury is a stringent thing, is a stringent case, because he has to pay so many, then all the more so, less stringent cases, he pay money and not get lashes. We also cannot argue that way. Sheken utar mikelalo bebet din, because there is also a leniency when it comes to hitting someone, which is that a bet din is permitted to hit someone. So you see that in some cases, this act is permitted. And so that makes it in some way actually more lenient than any other case. For example, incest, which is prohibited no matter what. There's never a case where anyone can do that. And so that would be a more stringent. So just because we are lenient regarding injury and say only money does not mean that we can be equally lenient and say only pay money in the case of incest. So that there would have to be lashes. So the point is, no matter which way you say, no matter whether you think that money in general is more stringent or less stringent than lashes, the injury, giving someone injury itself has a stringency that you have to pay 5 things, and also a leniency that in some cases it's permitted, like a bet din can give someone lashes. And so therefore, we cannot learn from the case of injury that in general we always make someone pay. So we're going to look for a second source for ula. Ula's statement that whenever you're liable to 2, you pay and no lashes. Edim zo'amin, if someone lies and says, you have to pay $100, and they're found out to be edim zo'amin, meaning they weren't there at the time of, let's say it was a loan. They weren't there at the time of the loan. They couldn't have seen it, so they could not possibly have testified to say that we saw this person borrow money from the other guy. And therefore, they turn out to be lying witnesses, false witnesses. Now, the punishment for edim zo'amin is twofold. Number one, they have to do whatever they tried to do. They tried to make this guy pay $100 falsely. They themselves have to pay $100. That's the monetary part. They also went against the 10 Commandments, and they were a false witness, the 9th commandment, and so therefore they would have to be liable to lashes for violating that prohibition. And so in that case, what is the actual law? They pay and they don't get lashes. So we can learn in all cases that when you have both of those punishments, one pays and does not get lashes. Okay, so that's the second source. But then we say, no, not necessarily. Edim zo'amin have a stringency, which is that you don't have to warn the edim zo'amin before they come and testify. You don't have to tell them, listen, if you're lying and you weren't there and you could not possibly have testified, if you're found to be zo'amin, then you're going to have to get the same punishment as you are testifying about. In all other cases, before you give someone a punishment, you have to give them a warning. So here, edim zo'amin is actually more stringent, and assuming that money is more stringent than lashes, maybe only in edim zo'amin where you have to pay because so stringent, and it doesn't mean in another case where that's not edim zo'amin, maybe there we'd be more lenient and say get lashes and not pay. So we can't learn from it under that assumption. And now, even if we assume, if we assume that paying money is less stringent, and in that case we would say, if you only pay money with edim zo'amin, which is more stringent, then certainly in a less stringent case you would also pay money. We also can't do that. Sheken lo asu ma'aseh, but edim zo'amin also has a leniency. The leniency is that edim zo'amin did not themselves do any act. They didn't actually steal the money. They tried to they didn't. First of all, they didn't go through with it. Money was not taken, and they didn't actually do it. They just said words, and so they spoke falsely. And if they would have been ratified, then money would have exchanged hands. But that's they didn't do anything that's nearly as bad. Meaning attempted robbery or attempted whatever they're doing is not as bad as actually doing it. And so maybe it's only regarding Adim Zomin that we are lenient and say you only have to pay, but another person would get lashes. So either way, whether you think that paying money is more stringent or less stringent, you still couldn't learn from Edim Zomin, because Edim Zomin has both a stringency and a leniency. So both of these sources are not sufficient for ula. אלא גמר מתרוויהו, מה לצד השווה שבהן דאיכא ממון מלכות, ממונה משלם מלכה ללקה, אף כל אחד דאיכא ממון מלכות, ממונה משלם מלכה ללקה. So we say, what? Let's combine both of these cases together. Damaging someone by injury and edim zomamin. And we'll look at the common denominator. The common denominator is that they make someone liable to both pay and lashes. And the verdict in both of these cases is that one pays and one does not get lashes. So too, the differences will cancel each other out, and we'll say all cases where you would be liable to both things, you pay and not get lashes. Then we reject that. In an interesting way, we say, wait a second, but they also have in common a stringency. And if we assume that paying is actually less stringent, then also we couldn't learn from it, because both of these have a side to them that are lenient, and so you couldn't learn from them either way. This is a bit strange, because that's the whole point of Sad HaShaveh, is that the differences cancel each other out. And so if you use this logic, then you would always reject a Sad HaShaveh. Okay, nevertheless, we're applying it here, perhaps because the differences that make them stringent and lenient are so different that even together they don't cancel each other out, or maybe because just that we want to get to the next answer, because the next answer is actually better than the ones before. Ela ula tachat gamar ketiv hachat tachat asher inna uchtiv hatam ayin tachat ayin ma hatam mamona meshalem milka lalake av kol echad ika mamona malkut mamona meshalem milka lalake. Rather, we're going to learn it from a gezerah shava of the word tachat. Appears twice. Number one, it appears regarding the case of rape. It says v'natana isha shocheb ima labiya naracha mishim kasef v'lo tiyeh leisha tachat asher ina. He has to pay her, and we force him to take her as a wife if she agrees to it. Tachat instead of because he tortured her. So we see the word tachat. Now, what does the word tachat mean? We know ayin tachat ayin. There it means not literally an eye for an eye, but an eye for the value of an eye. So tachat means monetary compensation. There, that's already established in different sugya. So too here, tachat means paying money and not lashes. So there you go. Someone who is the rape victim, no matter who it is, as even if it's a sister, where one would normally be lashes, in this case it would be money. So this case is actually the source, and so therefore we learn from there that all cases where one has to pay and also give lashes, one pays and does not give lashes. That is the final proof for ula, that money is the more severe one, and therefore one pays money and not lashes. All right, and now we get to the other opinion. Back to the original question where we had two Mishnayot. Our Mishnah says that one rapes sister, one pays, and one Makot says in the same case one gets lashes. So Rabbi Yochanan says, you know what? I can resolve. I don't have to say that that's talking about a bogeret, even though actually Ula found a way to say that's also talking about a na'ara, but he had to limit it to mifuteh. So we don't. Rabbi Yochanan says I can say it's talking about a sister na'ara regular case. What's the difference? Kanche trubo, kanche lohi trubo. There, in the case in Masechet Makot, is where they gave him a warning. So they warned him. It says, listen, if you do this, then you're going to get lashes. He does it. That's why he gets gets lashes. But if there's no warning, that's our case in Ketubot. If there's no warning, you can't give someone a physical punishment like lashes. But you can make him pay. So our Mishnah is talking about where there's no warning. Okay, so what we see here is that only when there's no warning, that's when we make him pay. But if there is a warning, and in that case, he's liable to lashes and money, then he gets lashes and does not pay. So which means, according to Rabbi Yochanan, when someone is liable to both, he only gets lashes. So we see that anytime you're liable to both, and there was warning, he gets lashes and he does not pay. Now we want to know the source of Rabbi Yochanan, that lashes is worse than Mammon. Amar Keda, Kederish Ato. This is regarding giving lashes. But the Bet Din gives lashes. If someone is liable to doing something evil, then the judge will condemn him to lashes according to his evil. Kederish Ato. The word rish ato is in singular, not rish otav. So, mishum risha achat ata mechayavo v'i ata mechayavo mishum shete rish ayot, which means that we make him liable for one act of wickedness, but not for two acts of wickedness. Usmich le arba'im yakenu. And then right after this says that we hit him, we lash him 40 times. So meaning that when someone does something that would make him liable to two punishments, then he only is rasha one time. He only gets one of the punishments. Which one? The next pasuk tells us that it's lashes, and that's how we learn lashes and not monetary payment. Okay, good. That's the Rabbi Yochanan's source. Now, the items that we brought before as an attempted proof for Ula are now going to be an attempted challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. If someone injures his friend, then he is liable to both pay money and lashes, and yet he only pays money and does not get lashes. That is against Rabbi Yochanan, who said one gets lashes and not money. So what's the reason? So maybe you'll say that one only pays money when one causes an injury when there was no warning. If there was a warning, then indeed you'd get lashes, and consistent with Rabbi Yochanan. But that can't be, because Rabbi Yochanan himself said a statement that's the opposite. He said, if someone hits someone else, but the monetary payment that's resulting would be less than a penny, less than something payable. Peruta is the smallest denomination. And so he hit him, but it was didn't cause any damage, it didn't hurt, and he doesn't have to pay any significant amount. Then he does get lashes. Rabbi Yochanan said that. So let's analyze. If he wasn't warning, if there was no warning, then why would he get punishment? So it must be that there was a warning. So he hit him a small hit, but there was a warning. So it must be that if there was no warning, he wouldn't get lashes. So it must be that there was a warning. And yet, the only reason why he gives lashes and not payment is because I can't pay less than a shaveh peruta. But if it was worth more, then he would actually pay money. So therefore, we can't say that the case of injury where one pays is because there was no warning. So we remain with the question, how come in the case of injury, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you pay and don't get lashes? And the answer is kedamar bi ilah. Beferush rebeta Torah edim zomin letashlumin. Hachaname beferush rebeta Torah chobel bechabero letashlumin. So Rabbi Ilah says those are exceptions, just like edim zomin is an exception. Normally, because he swore falsely against the 9th commandment, so normally he would have to get lashes. But the Torah goes out of its way to say, Edim Zomin, he does whatever he tried to do, including payment. Here too, regarding Chobel, the Torah goes out of its way to say, even though Chobel normally should get lashes, we learn that from Kedei Shato, nevertheless, the Torah goes out of its way to say, no, don't apply the normal rule, rather he has to pay. Okay, so Rabbi Yochanan will rely on Rabbi Il'ah. Now, this statement of Rabbi Il'ah, let's find the source. Where did he say that? He said it here. Medin anu et ish peloni. Shechayav l'chavero 200 zuz. If two people's Mishnah Makot come and say, we testify that this person owes 200 zuz. Those witnesses are found to be lying witnesses. They were not there. Could not possibly have testified. Lokin umeshalamin. And so they get two punishments, in fact, both lashes and payment. Why? Shelo Hashem ha-mevi'an lideh makot, mevi'an lideh tashlumin. Because literally the name, but it means here the source or the commandment, meaning the designation of the charge, right? He's liable to two counts, and there are different commandments that he's liable to. So the one that made him liable to makot is the ninth commandment. Don't swear falsely, and that's different from the one that makes him pay, which is that you shall do to him as he conspired, because edim zoamin. Okay, so that's the bit of Rabbi Meir. says, since there's two different commandments, yes, we do apply both of them. Chachamim omrim kol shameshalem eno lokeh. But Chachamim disagree, and that's what we're following, that if you pay, then you don't get lashes, meaning that you only have to pay. And that's true in this case of here edim zoamin. Now we ask, why did you choose in that case that you pay and not get lashes? I know you only give one, but maybe give lashes and not pay. Amar Rabbi Il'ah. That's what Rabbi Il'ah said, his statement about that Mishnah Makot. And he said, says, you're right. Usually we would assume that one should get lashes and not pay, as Rabbi Yochanan said. But here, the Torah goes out of its way to say that Edim Zomin should pay. Torah. Where do we see that? Yad beyad. Right, the next pasuk after that says, Lo tachos enecha. Don't be nice to the Edim Zomin. Rather, nefesh benefesh, ayin ba'ayin, shen b'shen, yad beyad, regel beragel. So yad beyad, I guess literally we would say, if he threaten to cause damage to a hand, then you have to pay with his hand. But it doesn't mean literally, we don't cut off people's hands. So rather, what does the yad b'yad mean? Lamali, dabarin miyad liyad. Rather, it's talking about something that is given from hand to hand, right? Whereas otherwise it's extra. It's included in the other types of injury that someone might cause. So here, the yad b'yad is included to say that it has to be something that can be given from one hand to another, and that means monetary payment. Umaynihu mamon. So there you go. Edim zomin is an exception to the rule. Now, chobel b'chavero nameh mikedi ketib. Chobel is also an exception to the rule. Again, the rule is Rabbi Yochanan. Usually, if you're liable to two, you give lashes and not money. But injury is an exception. We know this from the pasuk. Mekati kativ. Here's the full pasuk. Veish ki ten mumba mito kasher asa ken ya'ase lo. Someone injures his fellow, then you do to him as he did to you. But it goes on, it gives examples. Sheber tachat sheber, break for a break, ayin tachat ayin, shen tachat shen. Kasher yiten mumba adam ken yinaten bo. Whatever he did to his friend, whatever injury he did, so to you yinaten, give to him. Notice that pasuk yutet says ken ya'ase lo. The second pasuk says ken yinaten bo. So we ask, ken yinaten bo lamali? Why do you have to say that he will give to him? Why not just that he will do to him? Davar sheyesh bo netina umaynihu mamon. Has to be something that can be given. And what is usually given? Something, money is given from one to another. And so you see with edim zomin and injury, the Pesukim go out of the way to say, in these cases, you pay. But that means these are the exceptions to the rule. The rule otherwise is that if one is liable to two counts, According to the Yochanan, one would get get lashes and not monetary payment, as opposed to Ula, who says the other way around. And on the next stuff, we're going to see why, what's at the root of their argument, why they actually disagree with each other. Baruch Adonai L'olam, Amen ve'amen.